Testimony, again, using the word testify and its definition, it's to make known and to provide evidence.
Hey, welcome to Ascend the Hill with Jeremy Austill. I'm Jonathan. This is Pastor Jeremy. How's it going?
It's going really well. Apparently, we got a scorcher this week. I mean, it is. I saw temps around 99, 98 again. So we're back in it. We had a break last week in the 80s. Again, here we open a podcast talking about the weather. I committed to not doing that, but here, like right out of the gate.
Oh, my goodness.
I think that is the go-to mindless banter.
Yeah,
somebody says, how you doing? Well, it's hot, bro.
It is.
It's cold.
Well, what is it? There's like the layers to conversation, and everyone, like, this is like a scientific thing. I don't know what book it's from. I can't cite my source, so don't at me. But like the first layer is always, no matter what relationship you're in with a person, it's always the weather. Yeah. And then depending on your relationship, you go another layer deep, talking about other things.
Is that because the weather is a shared experience?
I guess so.
You know, you're talking about something that both of you are dealing with, experiencing, navigating, and so maybe it's a go-to, because I really don't think about the weather that much in life.
Yeah.
Like I don't think, like I don't leave the house wondering what the temp is and if it's going to rain or whatever. I got other stuff on my mind. I'm not in an occupation. You know, if I was in an outdoor occupation, I would certainly be more mindful of that. My dad in construction had to be very attentive to the Weather Channel. It felt like in my dad's house, the Weather Channel was on more than any other channel, right?
Oh, yeah.
But by and large, I don't live in a world where the temperature and rainy or not matters a whole lot. But yet it seems like over and over again, we open this podcast and I start talking about the weather. Is it because it's a shared experience?
Shared experience. It's
relatable.
Yeah. There's always common ground when talking about the weather, griping about the weather.
Yeah, and of course, when you're like, "How are you doing?" Nobody's going to be like, "Bro, I'm not good today.
Yeah,
I'm tired. I'm frazzled. I'm stressed. I'm upset. I'm none of those things. But I'm a little tired."
Yeah, it is funny. You subconsciously, or people, I say in general, subconsciously, I feel like if someone's always being like super hard on their sleeve with asking how they're doing, you're just like, I'm just not going to ask you anymore. you know? You're just like, I didn't really want to know. I was just trying to be courteous, you know?
This was just like an opener, you know, like an icebreaker.
Yeah.
Well, anyway.
Well, speaking of
that rabbit trail.
Speaking of the weather in the 90s, before we get into the Sunday service, we're going to go back to the 90s.
Let's go.
Last time we talked about the school supplies, and that was fun.
Yeah.
So this time.
But side note, in case anybody has been attentive, I have loved the artwork for our 2 summer series.
Yes.
The artwork, really the last 3 have just been outstanding. The Take the Land series, that was a very beautiful, colorful artwork. And then when we did the parables, we kind of did a play off the VHS tape and tried to grab some 90s shapes. And then the summer playlist has been, I just have loved it. It looks really good on our screens for whatever that's worth. It looks great on social media. You've made a social media post on our Cornerstone socials about sharing your testimony. And I just thought it looked so good. And I knew you used the artwork that you had helped develop. And so, flowers to you, kudos to you for that. It's looked so good. Of course, we've also, I'm now 45 years old. I know you got some would you rathers to get to. But,
you're good.
But this might be, well, it might not be interesting, but here we go. So I'm 45 and I have come to the realization that I'm at the point in my life where I like what I like. And usually what I like is a little dated. It's like I like the look from 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And so in our our creative conversations, in our artwork for graphics series, stuff like that, we have a group text going with some of the younger people on staff because I need y'all to help me not be old.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Please help me not be old. And so they've helped us out a lot.
Yes.
Now, of course, I'm also like, don't make us too young.
Yeah.
Find the middle ground. Yeah. Don't let me be old, but I'm like, but they've been a super help. You've done a good job too. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always funny too, when sometimes there'll be a graphic that's picked and it'll be funny. You'll be like, why did we pick that one? Like, that's so wild or out there. Yeah. It's fun. It's a fun experience.
Yeah. Usually I'm like, I don't like this one. And it's like, that's the one that Pastor AT and Pastor Curtis are like, that's the awesome one.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
it's like, oh, you're like, great.
Either I'm old or y'all are young and immature. I don't know which right now, but it's me being old.
Hey.
So.
Well, yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun series and a fun kind of back-to-back series, kind of New Testament to Old Testament. They kind of flow together.
Yeah.
Or they have in June and July. And
both very artistic.
Topics. Yeah.
Creative.
And in their own way, with parables being a certain style of art, Jesus using made-up stories to relay very important truths.
Yep.
And then David using very personal stories through poetry, relating his personal experience, his lived experience. And so it's just been a great 2 series and a great summer. And so, this past Sunday was the last one.
Yep.
And it'll be good to get into August and get into the fall and all the fun that is 2024. But, taking on that 90s or that, I say retro nostalgia.
Yeah.
Not all of it was 90s, but, last week we talked about school supplies.
Yep.
And so this time, school lunches.
Oh man.
Not 90s school lunches. Some of these are like things you might have taken with you. Some of these are things you had on your tray.
Let me hit pause.
Yes.
So I had an interesting conversation with our kids on Friday night. We went to dinner at Carrabba's, and which I love Carrabba's. Shrimp scampi as an appetizer is killer. It's so good.
Yeah.
The chicken marsala is
yeah.
chef's kiss. It's so good. So I like Carrabba's. So we were at Carrabba's and they said something and it reminded me. There's this Instagram account I follow that showed I guess it would be a carousel of photos of school lunches from around the world.
Yep.
And I mean, you had Spain, you had Greece, you had various nations. I Brazil, I can't remember all of them. And I'll just say flat out, ours was the most depressing.
Really?
In America, like our plate. Now, I'm sure the person who took the photos, they probably were trying to make a point that like we need to step. But man, the Latin countries, European countries, especially not necessarily like, Eastern Bloc European countries, but more coastal European countries, and then Asian countries, their food, and then even up in the Nordic nations, like their plates were so colorful. There were so many different items, and then ours looked like gray, chicken nuggets, and it was bad.
That will be very evident in this list that I'm about to go through.
Here we go.
Because yes, 100%. So this would be something that you might take with you, but those cheese and cracker packets, or the ones with the breadsticks, the little sticks that you would dip the cheese in.
Yeah.
So 1 to 10, what would be the rating on that?
Okay. Ooh, man. And if we're like, there's 2 different ratings. So we'll go back to kid me, because adult me knows that's not real cheese.
Not real cheese. Probably not real crackers.
No, and older me, that I eat that and it's probably, getting stuck somewhere in there and clogging me up the system. But you kid me, man, that was like an 8.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so good. And my preference very much was the crackers, where you got the little red stick and you had to scoop the cheese out.
Yes.
And spread it on the crackers. Yep. 8. I love those things. Right there with Cheese Whiz. I don't know if you're going to do that one, but cheese in a can.
Yeah.
10.
Yeah.
I mean, a delicacy in my house.
Yeah.
10.
Cosmic brownies.
I'd say those were probably a 4 on the you're talking about like the Little Debbie version, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the Little Debbie, catalog, if you will, cosmic brownies were low for me. Yes. They weren't one of my favorites. They were probably a 4. They're just kind of meh.
Yeah. All right. So this would be something you get with your lunch on your tray. Chocolate milk. Oh, back then, elementary school, I'm going chocolate milk every time. So 7. I'm pretty sure I went chocolate milk all the way through high school, just because it was like there's like nothing else. I was like, I don't want water and I don't want white milk,
Well, we had Turner Dairy in our town of Covington, and so all of our milk was Turner milk, and so I mean, I assume it came from a cow at Turner Dairy. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure Pastor Curtis wears a hat that's a Turner Dairy hat, and 100%. His dad worked there for a good while, and so yep, Turner Dairy, chocolate milk. Yes. And now when I got into high school, I started making the switch to sweet tea, but chocolate milk, 7, 8, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Rectangle pizza.
Oh, back in the day?
Classic.
Yeah, 9.
Yep.
Good 9. Good strong 9. Strong 9. I loved it. Pizza day was a win. I mean, so much so that once we were leading camps and we had to have nighttime food in the concession stand, we had the square school pizzas.
Yep.
And they're incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, I would eat almost every single night after a camp service. I'm eating square school pizza.
Yes.
And it was amazing. I loved it. So, and so to this day, give me a 9. I mean, I'll take it. It's a whole lot of nostalgia.
Did you ever have these French toast sticks?
French toast sticks. I didn't really have those. Those were probably too bougie for us. Those were probably elevated financial expense that we didn't shell out. But because I mean, French toast sticks, that sounds bougie. That sounds, high society. We didn't need those. Oh. Now my kids, Neelan, she'll wear them out.
Really?
Yeah, you take them jokers out of the freezer, put them in the microwave. I mean, who's got time to wait on the oven? So no go on the French toast sticks for me growing up. But Eggo pancakes, Eggo waffles.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Eggo waffles, did those. 6, 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the list, they had smiley fries as 90s lunch. The potato circles that had the smile cut out of them.
Yeah, I don't recall those much. In our school, it was more crinkle fries.
Okay.
I don't really recall the smiley fries. I've never been a fan of smiley fries. I'll give that a 2. I love fries, but those were more like mush. Like anytime I've had an encounter with smiley fries, it's more just like, mashed potatoes in a casing. So no go on that.
What about tots? Was tots big?
Tots, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, listen. A good tot gets a 10 from me.
Yep.
I mean, I'm all about a good tater tot, but for me, the prerequisite of a good tater tot is crisp level. Unfortunately, at school, they were probably more like a 4 or a 5 because they were always mush.
Yeah.
Because they baked them, and there's no way you'd have to bake them so long to get them like really crispy.
Yeah, I resonated so much with Napoleon Dynamite when they were giving him a hard time about his tots.
Yes.
Because it was like, no, that was the thing. Like, if you had tots, people are like, I want some of your tots. Give me your tots.
Yes. I mean, he kept them in his pocket.
I know.
And that was a work of genius. Yes, I love tater tots. Man, get me over to Sonic with some good crispy tots. There is a place, I mean, I almost don't want to go there anymore. Pinewood Social in Nashville, they used to have awesome tots, but I feel like the last couple of times I went, they didn't have them.
Oh, yeah.
So, of course, I'm at the point in life, too, where I'm trying to eat less carbs and all of that. So I don't eat tots as much.
Yeah.
But I'm a fan.
Well, we've been spending some time testifying to some good school food from the 90s, but now it's time to testify about Sunday because we talked about testifying.
Yeah, I mean, we're what, 13 minutes into this, and we're just now talking about the service. Listen, I don't know if anybody else cares about hearing about all this stuff. I need y'all to hit the comments up. If you want me to get to the message quicker, let it be known. I will not be offended by that.
I'll put a timestamp so you can skip forward. But
okay, look at him.
Yeah, I did that last time. If
you don't want to hear all this nonsense, just go to this spot. All right.
So yeah, on Sunday we talked through Psalm 40, and it was interesting because you reminded me of, we were talking about nostalgia, but there is a sense of nostalgia. You talked about going back in the day to those testimony services we would have.
Yes.
And I remember, if you missed the sermon, you can go back and listen to it. It's available on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform you're listening to right now, Spotify or Apple Music, anything that you can find a podcast on, it's available. But like I remember you were talking about that the person that would come up with the cassette backing, and they say, hey, play track number so-and-so. I'm going to sing the song.
Yep.
Like, I remember those times. Small church, AG, growing up.
Yes.
And so there was a little bit of, like, reminding of, like, okay, we don't have a lot of, like, in a sense, the media department kind of took on that role.
Yeah.
Filming those things.
Yeah.
In most church contexts. But since, I would say, like, late 2000s, I don't remember there being many church services where it was something like that, very personal, someone getting up. Not many of them. Most of them were done differently or in different ways. So it was kind of like, those were good things, that we had back then. To when we're talking about Psalm 40 and testifying, like that kind of background of our church history is like that was kind of a good thing to have those like very personal in person people talking.
Yeah, and I'm no. I can't speak necessarily from an absolute place of expertise, but I think the fact that we've drifted away from that is in part because we're not meeting 3 times a week. We're not having 3 services a week. Now we're as a church culture more life group oriented, which should create space for those type of personal conversations and testimonies. I think probably, not wanting to be negative or cynical, but probably part of it is let's not subject everybody to open mic. There's a layer of that's there. But I was just talking with Pastor Herb this morning, and he's sharing with me 3 or 4 stories from this Sunday of life change and, just interesting ways that people found themselves here at Cornerstone. And I know it's something you and I've talked about of how do we tell more of these stories? How do we do it more frequently with greater effectiveness? And so I know just for everybody listening, we have stories. Like we have miracle stories, we have life change stories all around us. And you and I have been having conversations about getting you some help, getting some people around you so that we could tell these stories with greater frequency and efficiency. But yeah, I mean, I grew up in a smaller church. Obviously we're a little bit of a larger church, and again, I think we've had this conversation before. I don't consider us a mega church. We're and not because that word has negative connotations. I just don't want to walk around going, I pastor a mega church. That feels really weird. We're a larger church, right? But in those smaller church contexts, knowing people and being known was a precious, precious part of that.
Yeah.
And I believe is a crucial part of church. It's a crucial part of someone's Christianity, of someone's faith, of their spiritual growth, of their spiritual strength, of their emotional, mental, soul well-being is to be known and to know other people. And so if I can just do a plug right here in the middle, it's the reason that we place an emphasis on being in a life group and being on team here at Cornerstone. And really, I've been pondering the last couple of weeks the need to place an even greater emphasis on those things.
Yeah.
We just did a push in our church behind the scenes and with our first impressions of trying to get people that are, with us for the first time to identify themselves so we can start the journey of ministering to them and ministering with them. And by placing an emphasis there, I mean, we've seen double and triple the guest interactions, since we started that. It's been very encouraging, and it's got me pondering, okay, so what do we need to do as spiritual leaders in this church to emphasize the necessity of serving on team and being in a life group to see that same type of increase. And the reason is because when you serve on team, when you are in a life group, it takes this big property and this cavernous space and this larger congregation that is a regional congregation. We're from multiple towns. The radius is pretty big of Cornerstone Church. This is a way for a person to know others and be known.
Yeah.
And one thing that troubles me, like this legitimately troubles me, and I wrestle with it a lot, is number one, the personal sense of I can't know everybody at Cornerstone, and I just hate that. It bothers me. I don't like it, but I have to learn to live with it. So if that's just my reality, that I can't know everybody, I'm not going to be able to have a lunch with everybody, I'm not going to be able to share coffee with every single person. I can do group settings, but there's still, if there's 30 people in the group, there's only so much connection that's happening, right?
Yeah.
So then I need to do the best I can to try to establish a culture where where we're emphasizing the smaller segments of our church within which a person can know others and be known. And that comes back to the testimony. Like this all is in that vein of the value of being able to share your story and how it affects the body of Christ and how the shared story of others affects your own faith. But I'm feeling this sense of being troubled with the thought of people being a part of this church and not knowing others and not being known by others, because my core belief, like my theological, biblical, ecclesiology, if you will, church belief is that church doesn't really work the way it's supposed to if you don't know people deeply and you aren't known deeply.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. Like you can come get a good sermon. I hope it's a good sermon. You can come experience platform ministry. You can hear, worship music done excellently and worship in the sound of a corporate setting. Your kids can get specialized ministry. I think of a family coming to church and the kids go to the kids ministry. Well, the kids are becoming known. Like our kids ministry breaks down into smaller segments. So our kids are starting to know others and be known. Our teenagers, if you got a middle schooler, they're going to a middle school service. They're starting to know and be known. And I worry for the mom and dad. I worry for the single person. I worry for the person that's attending our church, but they aren't known and they don't know others deeply. And I worry are we doing a good enough job to emphasize the importance of it and to help them make those steps to get engaged more deeply.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, everybody that I'm talking about is grown. They're adults, and they have to identify like the way Jesus designed the church. And the way Jesus designed the church was to know and be known, to know each other's story, to inspire one another, to strengthen one another, to offer compassion and help for one another, to celebrate one another, to weep with those who weep and celebrate with those that celebrate. So all of that comes back to, there is that element in the smaller church, in those testimony times, in those, sing the track times, that was so precious that I think are quintessential, like what Jesus intended the church to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we talk, as you talked more in the sermon about not just sharing, but the power of sharing, why it's important, and even how to, at the end, you give the 4 points of sharing your testimony and why it's important. And I was wondering, because we've talked a lot about society, social media, things like that. Has social media helped or hurt people being bold or feeling the ability to share their story in a public format,
I don't know that it's affected boldness one way or another. If it has affected boldness in any way, I would think for the good, because you can share your story but not have the discomfort of immediate reaction. You can share your story and there is a layer of detachment from any potential rejection.
Yeah.
And so social media should create a boldness. We had a couple of our congregants that in the aftermath of Sunday's message, they just got on their social media accounts and they told their story. And I thought it was awesome. I thought it was wonderful. I thought it was, man, they caught the heart of the message. I think personally, our social media should testify to our faith more than it testifies to our financial success, more than it testifies to our likes and dislikes and our hobbies, more than it testifies to our political opinions or our societal opinions. Like, I think our social media, my social media as a believer, not as a pastor, my social media as a believer, like ultimately is an extension of my witness to the world and those around me. It's an extension of the testimony of a life lived centered on Christ and filtered through Christ. And so, sure, I post some stuff about the Vols. You know, it has nothing to do with my faith per se. It's personal. It's a part of who I am. But I see my social media as an extension of my faith, of my testimony. And I think it would be incredible if more Christians looked at their social media as an extension of their testimony, an extension of their life of faith. And like, I'm going to use this to not shape a narrative, but to portray my life lived in Christ. So that the people that know me, number one, my church family, they see my life and maybe they're encouraged by it. Maybe they're challenged by it. They're getting to know me a little better. There is a knowing element to it, right? I always get cracked up. Somebody will catch me on a Wednesday night and be like, talk about, we laughed about the first 13 minutes being nonsense. But almost every Wednesday, somebody will come to me and mention something, dumb I said, during that time. But there is a level of knowing, getting to know, but also to see what your social media could be in the arena of your non-church friends, and what it could be in the arena of people that don't know the Lord, but they know you, right?
Yeah, and I get, sometimes I wonder if people want to share their story, but maybe sometimes they're like, well, I don't like, whether you have one or you feel like you have one, maybe sometimes people can feel like, well, I don't really know if I have a story. What are some good ways to kind of process through your history and kind of pull out nuggets of like, this is what the Lord's done in my life? Because I feel like sometimes people can think of testimony as a big word that means a big thing.
Yeah, you were talking earlier, and it made me think a lot. I can remember basically like I don't know what you call them, like testimony labs. Here's how you write your testimony. Yeah. Here's how you share, like almost like it was a homiletics, which is the art of preaching. It was almost like or the science and art of preaching. It's almost like a homiletics course on how to write, break down and share your testimony. And I think there's spots in life where that's valuable, especially if you are sharing it publicly.
Yeah.
In a public, arena, if you will. But on a real human level, it is the acknowledgement of who I was before Jesus, and even the things that I've struggled with and wrestled with while being a believer that the Lord has helped me walk out of.
Yeah.
It is emotional states that he got me through, pain that he helped me endure, miracles and ways that he came through in my life. And so, one thing that I think when you hear the word testimony, I think probably just default, we kind of go back to our conversion experience. This is how I got converted into Christ. This is where I got saved. But I don't really see testimony in that way. Testimony, again, using the word testify and its definition, it's to make known and to provide evidence, right? So in that scenario, what happened in my life last week can become a testimony because I'm making God's character known through something that happened in my life, and I'm providing evidence in the physical form of a changed life and impacted life.
Yeah.
And so, I think in so many ways, our testimony is just talking about the Lord with some frequency in every arena of our life. Like we just kind of talk about the Lord, right?
Yeah.
So, that's that. And our testimony is, I think for some of us, it starts with making sure everybody who knows you know Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. I've talked about like months and months, maybe even a year or two ago at this point. There's a gentleman that works at the Starbucks that Neelan and I stop at every Sunday morning, and we've gotten to know him. And we've gotten to know his wife a little, just literally these little 5-minute interactions that we have. And, he calls Neelan Munchkin.
That's funny.
Every once in a while, he'll give her a cake pop. He knows our order. Like when I pull up and I start talking, he can spit back my order. He knows it all right. So one Sunday, Michelle was taking us to church. To this point, he knew like we're going to church.
Yeah.
Like he knew that, but he didn't know I was the pastor.
Yeah.
I was just kind of like, I'm just keeping that on the down low. He knows we're going to church. My daughter's going to church. I think in his mind, it was like, man, they're really committed to their church because it's like
it's early.
I mean, it's like 5 something in the morning, and they're rolling through here. And Michelle was taking us to church one day because we were traveling afterwards and needed to just do one car. So she's in the passenger seat, and we've been telling her about this man and his wife, and so she's like. Said something about got to get the pastor to church, something. And he's like, oh, you the pastor? I'm like, yes, I'm the pastor. And so like, she was like, oh, I didn't know that wasn't known. Right. And of course, every pastor out there can identify. It's like when you let people know you're the pastor, everybody starts people kind of get a little weird around you, but,
yeah.
But like, I'm living my life in front of this guy, and it was early on that he knew like I'm a believer.
Yeah.
Right? Like the person, my barista at Starbucks knows I'm a believer. They know that about me, and we're just on this kind of long conversation, and basically a week in, week out check-in.
Yeah.
And we talk about life. We talk about what's going on with them, and so you're just testifying. Like I'm testifying with my life. I'm testifying with my commitment, with my devotion. So, but I think testifying really starts with, does everybody in your world really know that you know Jesus?
Yeah. And I guess as we kind of wrap up here, I guess that kind of helps people because I feel like there can be a tendency to minimize what people would call mundane compared to other people's stories. And so it almost seems like, no, like people need to hear the mundane because not everyone has like those big moments.
Yeah.
They happen a year, once every 2 years.
Yeah.
Like the big stories of what God did are built on tons of little things that happen along the way, it seems like.
Well, somebody that's walking with the Lord, somebody that's in like consistent, deliberate, intentional, focused relationship with God, well, then we constantly have stuff that we can point to and say, this is where the Lord helped me. This is how I can see his hand,
Yeah.
And that aspect of your story is maybe even more important than the big moments because like not everybody's an addict. Not everybody has these like stories of tragedy that they need to be rescued from. Like the majority of people have problems, they have struggles, they have pain points in life, but it is the like lived with the Lord expression of your faith that people get to kind of look in on. That is an incredible, incredible testament to the friendship of God, the love of God, the faithfulness of God. And you talk about kind of the grand testimonies. I've made it so plainly clear. All I've known is Jesus. My mom led me to the Lord when I was 5. I do not have a dramatic conversion story. I don't have these big addictions set free. I don't have all of that stuff. But I'm walking with the Lord. And so I can, on any given day, point to the work of the Lord in my life, can point to the goodness of God. I'm not just testifying about an event that happened in my life. Like I'm testifying of his goodness. I'm testifying of his love. I'm testifying of his involvement in my life and how he worked out details and ordered my steps, So I think sometimes even in the vein of testimony, we think of an event that we're supposed to tell about.
Yeah.
But no, I am making him known, and my life is the evidence of who he is.
Yeah. And, as we wrapped up the series, it was a good place to end on for the summer because it was like, okay, we've gone through the parables. Jesus does all these things for people in the parables.
Yep.
Then we go through Psalms. God did all these things for King David. And then you even reference New Testament testimonies alongside King David in the sermon. And so now is the perfect time if you have a story let it be known in the comments, post it on socials, tag the
Yeah.
church so we can share it.
Yeah.
And or email us and let us know, because we'd love to share it with the church as well. So just whatever avenue you find yourself in, just share your story and let us know that you're sharing it so we can come alongside you and champion you. And
get in a life group.
yes,
Get on team. I just want to commission, if you're in life groups, if you're on team, you're a recruiter. Like I need you as your pastor. You've heard me. If you've listened to this whole thing, you've heard me say, like, I'm troubled about this.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to wrap my mind around how to minimize the amount of people that are a part of Cornerstone that aren't known and don't know others. I wanted, and I need the help of our people that know and are known to see people and have conversation with them and find out, like, what's their level of connection? Like, how can I gently, lovingly, but assertively lead them into knowing and being known in this body, in this family of believers, right? Yeah. That's unbelievably important.
Yeah, and month of August will be a great time to get connected either on team or in a life group, because not only will we have a team fair all month to get connected to team and start serving at the church, but also life group signups start on Sunday, and we start a new sermon series on Sunday. So what are we getting into in the month of August?
So yes, great plug. Team fair, team, life groups, all starting. We're going to spend the month of August trying to be really intentional and diligent about it. This Sunday, we're starting a new series called Citizens. And I've all year long, I've known when we get toward the fall, I need to kind of speak about being a Christian in our present day society.
Yeah.
And speak to, like, what kingdom people look like in a nation and in a world system. And so we're going to spend several weeks. I don't know how many, but we're going to talk some from the book of Daniel. On August 11th, I think everybody needs to be here. It's going to be it's a back to school Sunday. It's a next gen emphasis day. And we did that last year, and it was a powerful, powerful day. And it's an all church day. You know, it is an all church owning our responsibility to next generation and trying to raise a young generation spiritually as a church community in what sometimes feels like Babylon.
Yeah.
You know, so we're going to talk about that. We're going to spend a week or two talking about a strong Christian sexual ethic. When we get ready to do those, I'll give parents a heads up. So if you want, to put your kids in a different space and make sure they're not in the sanctuary, because I'm raising kids too, and it's like I don't want them to hear about stuff until I feel like they're ready to. I always was conscious of that. But we're going to talk in a perverse society. Social media is still like explosive over the flamboyant, perverse demonstration in the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, right? And so we're living in a society where one of the anchor points of human society, like the Olympic Games, where the entire world turns their attention to one place, at that moment, perversion, like immoral sexuality, gender confusion, all of that was on display in one of the most public moments in our world. Well, what do we do as Christians? Like, we've got to have that conversation, right? And so we're going to talk about stuff like that. We're going to talk about being people of forgiveness in a world of vengeance. Yeah, we're going to call ourselves to say, like, we are in this world, but we're not of this world. And the world is won the Jesus way. Yes. Right?
Yeah. So get ready to get into it in August. Life groups, team fair, Citizen sermon series. Regardless, we want to see you Sunday. If you can't be here on Sunday, watch us on Facebook, YouTube, csnlive.org. And if you miss all that, you can catch it on the podcast, you can listen to the whole sermon and then catch us next week on It's in the Hill. Regardless, we hope you have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you here in person with your church family this Sunday.